My name is Lydia Rowan, and I'm 28 years old. I work as a software engineer, and for as long as I can remember, I've taken pride in being reliable, the kind of woman who shows up, follows through, and doesn't create unnecessary drama. For 2 years, that's exactly what I was in my relationship with Terry Carter. We met through mutual friends back in college. He had this easy, charming energy, and we bonded over hiking sci-fi shows and our shared tendency to overthink everything except each other. In the beginning, things felt balanced. I planned thoughtful dates, sunset picnics, weekend road trips, long walks with quiet conversations, and Terry brought a spark that made every moment feel brighter. But when I look back now, the red flags were there from the start. I saw them. I just didn't want to believe them. Terry was a social butterfly, the type who thrived on attention, both offline and online. He dreamed of becoming an influencer and spent hours curating selfies and night-out stories with captions polished enough to sound effortless. I'd like and comment, pretending it didn't sting, when he posted from places I hadn't even known he was going. He'd say, "Just guys' night," or "It's work stuff," and I'd nod, giving him trust he didn't really earn. It didn't help that his freelance design work was unstable. I covered small bills here and there when he hit a dry patch. I stayed up helping him redo an entire project he lost because he partied too hard the night before. I loaned him my car for a week and took the bus to work in the rain when his broke down. And I did it because I cared, not because I expected anything in return. But every time I expressed concern, every time I tried to talk about his late nights or why he was glued to his phone while we were together, he flipped the script. "You're being paranoid, Lydia. I need space. Don't smother me. You're making something out of nothing." I remember wondering if I was the problem, if wanting reciprocity made me needy. Over time, the emotional distance crept in so quietly, I didn't notice how far we'd grown apart. Our conversations became shallow. He'd scroll through social media while I talked about my day, and only perk up to show me some meme or viral video. Intimacy faded, and yet online he was energetic, playful, flirty, responding to women in the comments with heart emojis and "thanks, gorgeous." I told myself not to read into it. I told myself it was harmless. I told myself he loved me. But deep down, I felt like a placeholder, a backup option, a reliable constant in a life he wanted to feel more exciting. Everything boiled over last Friday night. We'd planned a date, simple drinks at a bar downtown to unwind from a long week. I got there first, grabbed a booth, and ordered our usual drinks. I was exhausted from a brutal project deadline, and all I wanted was some quiet time together. He arrived looking good. Terry always did, but his energy was off, distracted, more focused on his reflection in his phone camera than on me. We talked for a bit, but then he spotted a group of women near the bar. Some he knew from networking events. Before I even processed it, he was over there laughing with them, leaving me alone at the table like an afterthought. I sat there sipping my drink, telling myself it was fine that he'd come back in a minute. But then one of the women bought him a shot, and not in a casual, friendly way. She handed it to him with that flirtatious smile people reserve for someone they're hoping wants them back. And Terry accepted, happily. He tossed his head back, downed it, and ran a hand through his hair like he was auditioning for attention. When he finally returned, shot glass still in hand, something inside me snapped into clarity. "Terry, what's going on?" I asked quietly. "We're on a date. Why are you letting other women buy you drinks?" He rolled his eyes so hard I could practically feel the disdain. "Oh my God, Lydia, stop being so needy. I'm allowed to have women buy me drinks. It's not a big deal. It's fun. You're acting like I cheated or something." My stomach dropped. Needy. After everything I'd given him. "It's disrespectful," I said. "We're together. It makes me feel like I'm not enough." He laughed. A sharp cutting sound that felt like being slapped in public. "Disrespectful, please. Real women don't get jealous over a free drink. If you can't handle me having a social life, that's on you. I'm not going to clip my wings just because you're insecure." I stared at him, the bar noise fading into a low hum as my mind replayed every late night, every sacrifice, every moment of support I'd poured into him. And he stood there smug, offering me twisted logic wrapped in delusion. "Okay," I said. "Just that." I reached into my purse, pulled out my wallet, paid the tab, and stood up. He blinked, thrown off. But I didn't wait for him to say another word. I walked right out of that bar and into the cool night air. The walk home felt unreal, like moving through fog. No crying, no anger, just a heavy, unfamiliar clarity. How had I let it get this far? Later, sitting on my couch, staring at the blank TV screen, the unfairness settled into my bones. How he manipulated, dismissed, and belittled my loyalty. How he twisted my trust into something to mock. I thought about texting him demanding an apology, but what was the point? He'd find a way to make it my fault again. So instead, I powered off my phone and went to bed. The next morning, he'd sent a few casual texts. "Where'd you go? That was dramatic, lol." No remorse, no accountability. By the afternoon, I made up my mind. I gathered the few things he had at my place, his spare clothes, his cologne, the charger. He always forgot and dropped them off at the front desk of his building with a note. "We're done." Then I blocked him for my own sanity. Not out of spite, just self-preservation. For the next few days, I let myself sit with the betrayal. Work became my safe place. I buried myself in code, hit the gym, religiously cooked meals for one, and let silence become a kind of healing. Friends asked what happened. I kept my answers simple. In the quiet, I rebuilt myself piece by piece. And by the end of that week, just as I finally felt steady again, the storm began. But that's for later. Right now, this is where the real unraveling started. In the days after I ended things with Terry, the silence felt strangely loud, like someone had turned down the world, just enough for me to hear every unprocessed thought echoing through my head. Some people say breakups hit in bursts. Mine hit in waves, slow, heavy, relentless. Still, those first few days were exactly what I needed. I kept my routine simple. Wake up, work, gym, home, repeat. The predictability felt like stitching myself back together thread by thread. I didn't unblock Terry, not yet. I wanted distance, not because I hated him, but because I needed space from the version of myself I'd become around him. The version that apologized too quickly, gave too much, waited too long for bare minimum kindness. By midweek, I noticed something unexpected. I was breathing easier. Cooking felt less like a chore. Music sounded fuller. Even washing dishes felt peaceful without someone in the background scrolling TikTok at full volume, ignoring every attempt at conversation. And work became my anchor. I poured everything into that project I'd been juggling for months. Long hours, yes, but for the first time, it felt like I was building something for me, not squeezing in productivity between Terry's crises. My boss noticed. He swung by my desk on Wednesday, eyebrows raised when he saw my progress. "Lydia, this is excellent work," he said. "If you keep this up, we might be discussing a role change, something bigger." I didn't expect that spark of pride in my chest, but I welcomed it. It had been a long time since someone genuinely appreciated my efforts. That night, I rewarded myself by trying a new recipe, simple pasta with roasted garlic, and eating it while reading one of the books I'd abandoned during my relationship. Halfway through the meal, it hit me Terry would have mocked. The recipe complained it was too plain, or asked why we couldn't just order something instead. I let the thought pass. That version of my life wasn't mine anymore. On Friday, a week after the breakup, I finally unblocked Terry, not to talk to him, but to check whether he'd picked up the things I left at his front desk. He had. What I didn't expect was the flood of notifications waiting once the block lifted. It wasn't just a couple of messages. It wasn't even 10. It was dozens. They came in at all hours from morning to past midnight. The tone changed every few messages, like he was spinning a wheel of manipulation and sending whatever came up. First, the soft attempts. "Can we talk? I miss you, Lyd. Let's fix this. Our hikes. Remember those?" I didn't reply. Then the excuses. "You overreacted. It was just a drink. Why end 2 years over something so small?" Still no response from me. Then the self-pity. "Everything's falling apart without you. My workload's a mess. I can't sleep. I need you." And finally, the guilt tripping. "Ignoring me is childish." "Wow, you're really doing this. I guess I never knew how cold you were." For a moment, I felt that old tug, the urge to explain, to defend myself, to make him understand. But I shut it down. Terry never understood things he didn't want to face. No text from me would change that. So I sent him one message. Just one. "It's done." A clean cut, a closing line. But instead of backing off, he took that as a crack in the door and forced himself through it. He called. Twice. I let both go to voicemail. Later that night, curiosity got the better of me, and I listened. His voice sounded strained, cracking in places. "Lydia, please pick up. I know I messed up, but you have to understand I felt trapped. You were always so available. I took it for granted, but now everything's falling apart. Mike was a jerk. He used me. Work is a nightmare. I can't keep doing this alone. Can we meet, please? I need to see you." I replayed the message once, not because I wanted him back, but because I needed to hear how absurd it sounded outside the haze of emotion. I was too available. That was his complaint. The emotional gymnastics were exhausting even from a distance. I deleted the voicemail and put my phone face down. The next day, the tone of his messages shifted again. Apologies mixed with anger, anger mixed with longing, longing mixed with insults. A full emotional roulette. Then, other people started reaching out. The first was from an unknown number. This is Terry's sister. Grow up. He's hurting because of you. You walked out like a child. Talk to him. Blocked. Then a call from a mutual friend, a woman Terry often manipulated with his charm. Hey, Lydia. I just talked to Terry. He's a wreck. He said you overreacted, that it was just flirting. No big deal. He's learned his lesson. Give him a chance. His lesson isn't my responsibility, I said calmly. We're done. Wow. Okay, he said you'd be stubborn. Tell him to stop involving people. Goodbye. I hung up. Each time someone called, messaged, or tried to guilt trip me, something inside me hardened. Not in a bitter way, just in a grounded, self-protective way. Every attempt to rope me back only confirmed how much of myself I'd lost trying to love someone so emotionally selfish. By week 2, the picture of Terry's unraveling became clearer, not from me digging, but from the people who actually cared about me and still talked to him. His independent life had backfired spectacularly. The woman from the bar, the one who bought him the shot, became his rebound. They posted photos together for a week or two, late-night outings, living free captions. Then she ghosted him, blocked him on everything, didn't return a single message. Terry had been used the same way he used attention for validation. Ironic, painful, predictable. His freelance clients dropped him after repeated missed deadlines. His friend group, exhausted by his drama, slowly pulled away. Even his family, who once adored his charm, started to notice how much he relied on excuses instead of growth. Meanwhile, I kept building my new life. My work project wrapped successfully. I got that promotion, larger salary, more autonomy, and remote flexibility. I booked a short solo trip to celebrate. I signed up for a tech meetup and met people who valued reliability without exploiting it. I started hiking again alone this time, and every trail felt like reclaiming parts of myself Terry had worn thin. For the first time in months, I felt light. Not fully healed, not forgetful, just lighter. And maybe that's why the timing felt almost scripted when right as I hit my stride, the next wave came bigger, louder, harder to ignore. Terry didn't just text. He escalated. And his desperation was about to spill out of the digital world and directly into my real life. By the time the 3rd week passed, I had settled into a rhythm that felt strangely refreshing. My life was quieter, steadier, almost peaceful in a way I hadn't realized I was craving. I woke up earlier because I actually slept through the night. I cooked real breakfasts instead of grabbing snacks on my way out. After work, I went jogging or read on my balcony. My apartment no longer felt like a place where Terry's constant scrolling and half-hearted attention lingered in the background. It finally felt like mine again. But peace has a way of attracting the very people who once disrupted it, and Terry was no exception. The next wave began the moment I unblocked him on our shared streaming account. It was only supposed to be temporary so I could update a billing detail tied to his email. Instead, I was met with a wall of unread messages, over 50 of them. They came nonstop, sent at random hours, written in a way that felt like his entire emotional state was unraveling in real time. The first few were attempts to sound calm and reasonable. Hey, can we talk? That night was a misunderstanding. I miss you, Lyd. We can fix this. When those got no reply, he moved quickly into explanations and excuses. You overreacted. It wasn't flirting. It was just a drink. Come on, this isn't worth breaking up over. Then came the guilt and self-pity. Everything is falling apart without you. My work is a mess. I can't sleep. And finally, the accusations, you're acting childish. You always were sensitive. Wow. Cold. None of it moved me. Not the pleading, not the manipulation, not the backhanded insults disguised as honesty. I stared at the screen, tired of the cycle, and replied with 2 words, it's done. That should have been the end of it, but to Terry, it became an opening. 30 minutes after my message, my phone lit up with a call from him. I let it go to voicemail. Later, curiosity got the better of me, and I listened. His voice sounded shaky and anxious, cracking in places. He rambled about feeling trapped because I was too available, about taking me for granted, about how everything suddenly collapsed without me. He brought up Mike, the guy from the bar, and said Mike used him. He brought up work falling apart. He brought up loneliness. Everything he said centered around his discomfort, his panic, his needs. There was no apology, no accountability, just a messy plea for the stability I used to provide. I deleted the voicemail without responding. The next day, his texts became frantic. 14 messages in the morning, 20 more by evening. Some begged, some lashed out. Some tried to rewrite history, some tried to rewrite me. But each one only confirmed that the person I had left behind was still stuck in the same self-absorbed loop. What I didn't expect was the involvement of others. The first text came from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Terry's sister. He's miserable. You need to talk to him. You walking out was childish." I blocked her. Then a mutual friend called someone Terry tended to charm whenever he needed a buffer. She insisted he was devastated and that I had overreacted. I told her calmly that his explanation didn't change his behavior, and she muttered something about me being stubborn before I ended the call. The worst interference came from Jen, one of Terry's closest friends. She called late in the evening, frustrated before I even said hello. "Terry is at my place. He's a wreck. Crying. Barely sleeping. He said you ghosted him over nothing. You owe him a conversation." I told her I didn't owe him closure and asked her to stop involving herself. She scoffed, called me cold, and hung up. Ironically, every attempt to guilt me only strengthened the boundary I had built. Instead of weakening me, it reminded me why I left. Meanwhile, mutual friends, people who actually cared about me, began sharing updates without me asking. Terry was unraveling. His rebound from the bar had ghosted him completely. His freelance clients were dropping him after he repeatedly missed deadlines. The friends he partied with were tired of babysitting him and listening to his rants. Even his family admitted he had become exhausting to deal with. And while his world collapsed, mine expanded. My promotion became official. My new responsibilities suited me. I booked a short solo trip I'd always dreamed of, but postponed, because Terry didn't like boring vacations. I met people at tech meetups who appreciated reliability instead of exploiting it. I reconnected with hobbies I forgot I loved, like hiking alone in the early morning when the world feels untouched. Everything in my life felt clearer except for one thing: Terry wasn't done. The texts continued, but the tone shifted from desperate to unhinged, then back to sentimental, then to angry again. It was like he didn't know which version of himself I might respond to, so he kept cycling through all of them. And then one day he crossed a threshold I had hoped he wouldn't. He stopped hiding behind screens. He stopped only using texts, calls, and friends. He decided to show up in person, not at my apartment. He knew better than that, but somewhere he knew I would be, somewhere he knew I went consistently, somewhere he knew it would be almost impossible for me to avoid him without making a scene. That was the moment I realized the situation wasn't simply about a breakup anymore. It was about Terry refusing to accept a world where he didn't get to control the narrative. And that confrontation was going to change everything. I didn't know he was going to be there that day. If I had, I would have changed my entire schedule, picked a different gym, or simply gone home and exercised in my living room. But sometimes the universe doesn't give warnings. It just throws you into situations you've spent weeks trying to avoid. It was a Thursday afternoon, humid and heavy. I had wrapped up work early and decided to squeeze in a workout before dinner. The gym had become one of the few places where my mind actually felt steady again. Headphones and treadmill, humming the predictable rhythm, helped drown out stray thoughts about the breakup or Terry's persistent attempts to claw his way back into my life. When I stepped out of the gym afterward, cooling down with a bottle of water in hand, I spotted someone leaning against the side of my car. For a second, I didn't recognize him. His shoulders were slumped, his hair unkempt, and there was a defeated looseness in his posture I'd never seen before. Then he lifted his head. Terry. His eyes were puffy, like he hadn't slept in days. The sharp confidence that used to radiate off him was replaced with something brittle and unstable. Beside him stood Jen, arms crossed, face tight with judgment, looking more like a resentful chaperone than a friend. The moment he saw me, Terry straightened and jogged toward me, as if relieved I hadn't turned around and run. "Lydia, thank God, we need to talk." My stomach hardened. My grip tightened on my gym bag. I kept walking toward my car, not speeding up, not slowing down, just refusing to give the moment more drama than it deserved. "There's nothing to talk about," I said, unlocking the car. He stepped in front of my door before I could open it. "Please, just hear me out." "Move." He didn't. Instead, he reached out and lightly grabbed my arm. Not hard, not aggressive, but desperate. His fingers trembled. "I've been texting, calling. I know I messed up. I know I acted stupid that night at the bar. I get it now. I pushed you away, but everything is falling apart, Lyd, and His voice cracked. "I can't keep doing this. I need you." It was the first time I'd ever heard Terry sound scared. Not angry, not confident, not defensive, scared. But the truth was, the fear wasn't about losing me as a person. It was about losing the stability, the comfort, the safety net I used to provide. His panic was not love, it was loss of control. Jen moved closer, arms still crossed, voice dripping with disdain. Lydia, he's been miserable. Can't you just give him 10 minutes? You don't have to be like this. I looked at her calmly. You don't get to decide how I protect my peace. That irritated her. Wow. He told me you were cold, but this is something else. I ignored her and focused on Terry. You called me needy, I said quietly. Remember, you said I was embarrassing you, that I was insecure, possessive, holding you back. You made me feel small for caring, for wanting respect. He swallowed hard. I know, I said horrible things. I wasn't thinking clearly. I thought I wanted freedom, fun, whatever. I thought the people at the bar actually cared. But they didn't. And now, I'm alone. My clients dropped me. I can't sleep, and Mike. He shook his head. Mike treated me like garbage. I should have listened to you. You always knew who genuinely cared. There was a part of me that almost felt sorry for him. But pity wasn't love, and empathy wasn't obligation. Terry, I said, your life falling apart isn't my responsibility. You're facing consequences of your own choices, not mine. He stepped closer. Then let me make new choices. Let me fix things. I'll stop going out every weekend. I'll change my schedule. I'll stop posting stupid things online. I'll focus on us. I'll do anything. Just give me another chance. No, I said, not loud, not dramatic, just final. He stared at me like the word physically struck him. No, he repeated, almost confused. Lydia, we were together for 2 years. And you disrespected me for most of the last 6 months. I didn't mean... You did, I said firmly. Every time you dismissed my feelings. Every time you ignored me on dates. Every time you flirted in front of me and called it empowerment. You meant it. You just didn't think there would ever be consequences. He flinched. Jen huffed like she was bored of the conversation. Terry, this is pointless, she muttered. But Terry wasn't ready to let go. He took another step toward me, voice rising with panic. Lydia, please, I'm begging. I'll do therapy. I'll cut off anyone you don't like. You're not hearing me, I said. I don't want another version of you. I don't want any version of this relationship. I'm done. For the first time since the breakup, he fully broke. His shoulders shook, his voice cracked, and tears actually spilled over. How can you be so heartless after everything we've been through, after everything I'm going through? I took a slow breath. You told me I was needy. You told me wanting basic respect was embarrassing. But look at this moment, Terry. You're the one ambushing me at the gym. You're the one sending 50 messages. You're the one dragging other people into our breakup. You're the one begging. I met his eyes. You became exactly what you accused me of being. He stared at me like he didn't recognize the person standing in front of him. Maybe he didn't. I wasn't the quiet, patient, self-sacrificing buffer he'd gotten used to. And he hated losing that version of me more than he ever loved me. I stepped around him, gently pulled my arm free, and opened my car door. He whispered, so that's it. Yes, I said, move on, like you told me to. His face crumpled at that. Jen looked away, uncomfortable. I got in the car, shut the door, and drove off. Terry stayed frozen where he stood, his hand hanging uselessly in the air. My phone buzzed later that night, angry texts, then bitter ones, then sad ones, then insults, then more begging. I didn't reply to anything. Eventually, I blocked his number again. The ambush outside the gym should have been the breaking point, but it wasn't. The real breaking point, the one that would expose everything, the one that would finally close this chapter for good, came later, at a place we both had ties to, a place we both knew neither of us could avoid. It was the public moment where Terry finally realized he had lost not just me, but the illusion of himself he had been protecting. And it was coming sooner than I expected. I didn't expect the final confrontation to happen at a party. Honestly, after the gym ambush, I thought Terry had finally exhausted whatever emotional reserves he'd been running on. I thought the blocked numbers, the ignored messages, and the growing silence would eventually push him into acceptance. But people like Terry don't let go quietly. They look for moments where the audience is big, the setting is neutral, and the stakes feel high enough to give them a chance at rewriting the narrative. And unfortunately, one of our mutual friends, Tom, was about to host his annual backyard birthday barbecue. I debated skipping it. I even typed out a text to Tom saying I couldn't make it. But then I stopped and stared at the screen. Why was I still adjusting my life around Terry? Why was I still protecting him from discomfort when he hadn't spared me a single moment of consideration for months? I deleted the unsent message and decided I was going. When Saturday rolled around, I felt more grounded than I expected. I'd bought new clothes after my promotion, a fitted blouse and dark jeans that made me feel put together without trying too hard. A version of myself Terry never really noticed or appreciated. I brought a simple gift, made a fruit salad, and drove over with music playing louder than usual. Tom's backyard was buzzing with chatter when I arrived. People I hadn't seen since before the breakup greeted me warmly. I laughed, mingled, caught up with old friends, and talked about my upcoming solo trip. For a while, I forgot Terry might even show up. But then I caught a glimpse of him near the patio, standing stiffly clutching a red Solo cup like it was an anchor. His eyes locked onto me almost instantly. He'd lost more weight than he should have. His shirt was wrinkled. His smile looked forced, stretched too thin, like it might fall apart with the slightest pressure. I turned away and kept talking to a friend. For a few minutes it worked. But Terry wasn't here to let things go. Half an hour later, when the grill smoke cleared and people wandered inside for drinks, there was a quiet moment by the barbecue where I stood alone. I had barely set my empty cup down when I sensed someone approaching. "Lydia, can we talk?" I exhaled softly and turned. Terry stood there tense and hopeful, as if convinced this party was the perfect place to stage his emotional comeback. "Terry, I'm here to celebrate Tom." "Don't start this," I said. He ignored the warning. "Please. Just a few minutes. I've been trying to reach you for weeks." "I know," I said, and I've chosen not to respond. He swallowed. "I know I messed up. You've made that clear. But I've been thinking a lot. Everything sucks without you. My clients fired me. My sister barely talks to me. I feel like I lost my entire life." He stepped closer. "We can fix this. We can rebuild. I'll change. I'll be better." Several guests nearby shifted uncomfortably, pretending not to listen. The tension radiated outward like heat. "Terry," I said quietly, "so only he would hear your life falling apart doesn't mean I'm supposed to fix it." "But you love me," he insisted, voice cracking. "You said you loved me." "I did," I replied, "but that love was never enough for you. You chose attention over commitment. You chose strangers over respect. You chose yourself every time. I'm choosing myself now." His face collapsed, anger flashing beneath the desperation. "I said I'll change. Isn't that what you wanted?" "I wanted a partner," I said. "Not the version of you that only exists when you're scared of being alone." He blinked rapidly, his breath uneven. "I don't know what to do without you." That I said softly is exactly why we shouldn't be together. He shook his head, voice rising. "So you're just done. After everything I've been through. After everything we were." "You weren't there for everything I went through either," I said. "You just never noticed." The humility in the moment could have ended there. Terry could have backed away, saved a shred of dignity, and accepted the truth. But he didn't. His voice grew louder, cracking in the middle. "You think you're better than me now because you got your little promotion, because you're so independent." His eyes were glassy and spiteful. "You're nothing without me." A few people gasped under their breaths. Even Tom, standing near the sliding glass door, froze mid-step. I took a breath and let every ounce of composure gather in my voice. "Terry, I said the difference between us is that I don't need to tear you down to move on. You don't define my worth. You never did, and you never will." For a moment he looked shattered, completely hollow. But instead of stepping back, he shot me a glare full of bitterness, turned too quickly, and stumbled slightly on the grass as he stormed off. His cup slipped from his hand and rolled toward the fence. No one followed him. Not a single person. Instead, they looked at me, some with sympathy, others with relief, all of them fully aware of the truth now. Tom approached and touched my shoulder lightly. "Good call," he said quietly. "Everyone's seen his true colors by now." I nodded, exhaling a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. That night when I got home, I blocked Terry completely, phone, socials, email, everything. Not as a dramatic gesture, but as a final act of closure. It wasn't anger, it wasn't revenge, it was peace. And the peace stayed. Over the next few weeks, I focused on myself. I finished planning my trip. I found new routines. I met new people at the tech meetup, one person in particular who seemed genuinely kind, respectful, and refreshingly grounded. Nothing serious, nothing rushed, just healthy. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't surviving a relationship. I was living my life. And as strange as it sounds, it took Terry calling me needy to finally see how desperately he'd needed me all along. Turns out he was the one who couldn't let go. He was the one who couldn't function alone. He was the one who needed someone to blame, someone to steady him, someone to catch the pieces every time he dropped them. He wasn't just wrong about me. He was projecting himself onto me, and walking away from that was the healthiest decision I ever made.